What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we're going to be unboxing the brand new iPhone 13 Pro. This time around, we've got a fresh new shade of blue, a big upgrade to the display, improvements to the camera capabilities and battery life, and I'm going to go over all of that and everything else you need to know about this new phone. But first things first, let's go ahead and see what all comes inside this super slim packaging. Now, you can probably tell that the box is basically the same as last year's phone. We get some little pull stickers here, no outer plastic wrap anymore. Apple took that away to reduce waste, but sliding off the lid of the box, of course, the first thing we get is the new iPhone 13 Pro itself. And like I mentioned, this is a much lighter, brighter blue finish versus last year. It's called Sierra Blue, and you can also get the iPhone 13 Pro in silver, gold, and graphite. As far as what else is included inside the box, well, not a whole lot, obviously. You still get a Lightning to USB-C cable there to charge your new phone, and a small packet of stuff that includes instructions, a SIM ejector tool, and an Apple sticker. But that's all. Apple continues to offer just the bare minimum inside the box. So with all that stuff out of the way, here is the new iPhone 13 Pro once again, all set up and ready to go. And obviously, at least at first glance, this newest iPhone looks nearly identical to last year's 12 Pro. But there are a number of new features, changes, and add-ons that might make it worth the upgrade. To start, up front, the 6.1-inch display is the same size as last year, but you might be able to tell that Apple reduced the size of that notch up top for the very first time. It's now about 20% smaller, mostly just not as wide across. It's redesigned a little bit as well, with a slightly different speaker grille located more towards the top edge, and you can see the difference there with the side-by-side comparison on the iPhone 12 Pro. Not a huge change, obviously. You don't gain much more screen real estate. You still can't even put the battery percentage up there, which is a bummer, but it's, I guess, still nice that it's slimmed down. The whole rest of the front is pretty much the same though, and around back we do get that identical matte glass and stainless steel frame that we've seen before. Like I mentioned, the new Sierra Blue finish here is quite a bit different than last year's Pacific Blue, but most everything else with the fit, finish, and form factor remain mostly the same. You might be able to tell though that while the camera module is once again that big triple lens setup, its overall size has increased quite a bit. So unfortunately, with that change, any cases you might have had for the 12 Pro won't be compatible with this new 13 Pro. The only other thing worth noting is that the iPhone 13 Pro is 0.3 millimeter thicker this year as well, and actually quite a few grams heavier in the hand too, which I noticed almost immediately. Overall though, even with those slight physical changes, this is obviously a very familiar and similar iPhone design compared to the years past. And just taking a quick look around at everything else, the left side of the phone still has the volume buttons and silent ringer switch, along with the SIM card tray down below. The right side houses the power button and a 5G antenna. At the bottom, the same speaker, microphone, and lightning port setup as before. There's a secondary speaker in the earpiece, once again for stereo sound, and that's still crammed in with the selfie camera and all those Face ID sensors. So while the basic design and form factor remain relatively close to last year, let's now talk about all the things that have changed with this new iPhone 13 Pro. And that starts with the display. The 6.1-inch screen is once again Apple's Super Retina XDR OLED panel. It's a 2532 by 1170 resolution and crams in some 460 pixels per inch. But it gets two important upgrades this year. First, it's now much brighter, 1000 nits versus 800 on last year's phone. So for indoor and outdoor viewing in particular, you should have a better overall experience, especially in direct sunlight and when dealing with potential glare. Right away, that brighter display is something I noticed. Beyond that though, the real big new addition is ProMotion. Apple has added a dynamic 120Hz display to the iPhone 13 Pro, and this is the first high refresh rate screen offered on an iPhone. With this, you're going to notice a snappier, more responsive experience with every touch, tap, and swipe, and the refresh rate will adjust automatically based on the app, animations, or other conditions. You might be able to see a difference side by side with the iPhone 12 Pro from last year here, but I think when you actually get it in your hand and start using it, you'll really experience that difference. Android users users, of course, have had a high refresh rate display for years now, whether that be 90 Hz or 120, and you could even get them on some cheaper Android devices too. But this is a first for the iPhone. It's definitely been long awaited, and it's a feature I know I'm going to appreciate. Overall, it just takes the user experience and the viewing experience to another level, and it is probably the biggest add-on to the iPhone 13 Pro this year. Beyond that, the display is once again covered in Apple's ceramic shield. You get HDR10 support and Dolby Vision. It's still a great screen overall, but I do think the brightness boost and 120 Hz add-on now make it just that much better. Inside, the iPhone 13 Pro, of course, gets the latest and greatest Apple chipset, their new A15 Bionic processor, which makes this phone, along with all the other iPhone 13s, the fastest and most powerful iPhones to date. You also get 128 gigabytes of internal storage now to start, twice the capacity for the same price. And you have the option to spec it up to 256, 512, or even a full terabyte of space. The iPhone 13 Pros are still running with 6 gigs of RAM, but with iOS 15 they are the fastest and snappiest iPhones available, which is expected. I don't know that you'll find a huge speed or performance boost versus last year's phone. iPhones in general have been so well optimized as of late, but if you have something maybe a few years older, you'll definitely notice a difference. Overall, the performance boost isn't a surprise, but I don't know that it's as substantial as years past. The biggest change to the internals actually is with the battery. The iPhone 13 Pro now packs a 3,125 milliamp battery inside versus the 2,815 milliamp from last year. And in real-world use, Apple says you can expect at least an extra 90 minutes of life under normal usage. This big boost in longevity is probably one of the biggest upgrades on the iPhone 13 Pro, and I'm really interested to see how much more life I can get out of this phone with my own usage versus my old iPhone 12 Pro. Across the board though, from the iPhone 13 mini all the way up to the 13 Pro Max, you should experience some pretty decent improvements to the battery life. Probably the most talked about upgrade overall with the iPhone 13 Pro though this year is with the cameras, both hardware-wise and with the real-world shooting capabilities. Starting with the specs, the iPhone 13 Pro offers what Apple calls an all-new ultra-wide, wide, and telephoto lens setup. It's the same basic spec, 12 megapixel main lens, 12 megapixel telephoto, and 12 megapixel ultra-wide, but the sensors are larger than ever across the board, and there are a handful of new capabilities as well. Macro photography with the new ultra-wide camera is now an option, so you can shoot super close-up pictures, and that will automatically pop up when you're a few centimeters away from a subject. There's also a new photographic profiles mode, which allows you to add a certain look to your pictures, and Apple states that this isn't just a filter, but it's sort of a similar idea. There's also much improved low-light performance across the board as well, so night mode shots should be sharper with less noise and look better overall, no matter what lens you're shooting with. And for video, Apple has added cinematic mode, basically a portrait mode for video, which can also automatically adjust focus based on the subjects of a scene. And Apple also added ProRes as a shooting option on the iPhone 13 Pro this year, though you're limited to 1080 resolution with this shooting mode unless you get a 1 terabyte device, so keep that in mind. One other thing to mention, the camera features and capabilities this year are the same across both the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max for the first time, and there's essentially no other difference between those two devices this year besides their size. Overall, the new iPhone 13 Pro does bring a handful of new features and changes. The ProMotion 120 Hz display I think is definitely a nice addition, and it's what I'm most excited about for sure. Better battery life is always a plus, more camera capabilities are solid too. It's certainly closer to an S upgrade year than anything else, but I think there's plenty here to still call it an overall upgrade. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this new iPhone 13 Pro. What do you guys think? Is this new iPhone something you're considering right now? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.